Hey, this is Joe. So tonight I'm going to be working on my 2019 Subaru WRX. I have the stock infotainment system, the radio inside of my car, and it's starting to fail. There's currently a lawsuit against Subaru. It's a class action lawsuit where other car owners are saying that they're having very similar issues with their radio. So I don't know how long it's going to take for them to resolve this. I'm not going back to the dealership. My car's out of warranty. So I'm just going to replace it with a new Sony head unit that has really good reviews. It's a much bigger screen. It's going to provide a little more of a preamp for the speakers that I have in there. So it's going to sound better. It's going to look better. And just wanted to do another fun project for my car. So I'll walk you through the steps. I've taken the radio out of my car once before when I installed new speakers as well as a subwoofer. So I do have the instructions pulled up on my laptop that I'm gonna go through. So we'll see how we do. Enjoy. Hopefully this is helpful. So subscribe. I'm trying to keep my channel updated with new videos, whether you like cars, motorcycles, garage projects. I'll be posting a bunch of different things. Enjoy. I'll show you the issue I'm having with my Subaru. So I'm going to start the car in accessory mode so that I can get the screen to come up. So as you can see, the screen does not allow me to click anywhere on it. I've disconnected the battery. I've tried to reset by holding this for 20 seconds. I've held both of these for 20 seconds. I've left the battery unplugged for 30 minutes and none of it seemed to do anything. I did notice after the car was sitting outside, so my car, let's see, I got it in 2018. It's a 2019. I did notice last week when I had the car sitting outside, there are a bunch of lines that are appearing at the top of the screen, as well as this thing. So to disconnect my battery, I'll go over here. I have a 10mm socket. And that will allow me to move this. And then I will just move this out of the way so that the car doesn't have any power. So what's really nice about Crutchfield, because this is where I bought it from, they do give you a bunch of manuals to help out. So I've got my installation docs here. So it says here's custom instructions, and then I can pull up the master sheets that walk you through actually removing the stock radio. So this is what I'm going to go through because I need to get the radio out before I can do any of the other work wiring. So I've got the parking brake set, and now I need to remove this air vent. I have some plastic pry tools I'm going to try and use and see if this can help me get out without scratching up any of the interior. It looks like we got that out, and then we need to remove the plugs. Okay. So next, we need to remove these 10mm bolts. Careful we don't drop them behind the radio. The instructions then say to remove this Phillips screw down here. You can then pry this panel off. Okay, so that just pulls out. So I removed the glove box. So it was just this retaining clip you had to push over, and then you can push either sides and then drop it down. There is another 10mm bolt holding the radio in on this side. And then once both those bolts are out, we should be able to pry out the radio. pull from the back, and then we can disconnect the cables from the back. So I'm going to remove the ground screw, which is probably a bunch of tabs. So here's a bunch of the wiring that's coming out of the back of the radio. Each one of these need to be removed so I can pull the factory radio out. To help ensure I'm not scraping up any of the car, I'm going to put this towel underneath as I'm trying to remove these cables. So now I have all the wires disconnected from the head unit. So before I start installing anything, I need to flash the Maestro. So this is the Maestro RR, and I needed to go on the WebLink website. I had to create an account, and now I've got it plugged up to my computer, and I'm going to flash it. So I'm going to pick Maestro, flash. We can do flash by vehicle. I'll select, I have a 2019 Subaru WRX. And I'm going to select the only steering wheel option. So I got the HRN-SU2. And then the brand of head unit that I bought is a Sony. So the radio I'm installing is the XAV-AX8500. And then I'll enter in the radio serial number. I entered the serial number from the bottom of my radio. And now I select the firmware. And then I do have this SON adapter that I'll use. Continue. And then I'll leave all of these options checked. And then I'll go through and fill out the steering wheel buttons. So I'll leave the default selected for this. I'll hit continue. And then this says it's going to confirm flashing for my car. I'll hit flash. Verifying device, and now it is going to flash the options to the Maestro unit. Looks like the flash is complete. All right, so I've made a bunch of progress. It's the second day. I had to go to bed because it was pretty late, but I have everything working the way that I want it. I just have to push everything back and get it into a good spot so that I can fit the radio in and then put the plate back on. So what I've got going on in here is, so I've got a Maestro. This is a little box that I have mounted under here. So once I get everything installed, I will sit this box up in here. I'll fasten it with some zip ties, and then that will be out of the way. And then if I need to do any type of reprogramming, which I can plug in USB here, then it will allow me to remap any of the controls. So for instance, if I need to make changes to volume, or if I want to long press on something to trigger another action, I can do all of that from this box. Now I had two sets of instructions for the Maestro that I found, one from Crutchfield and one from ACC itself. I think the ACC one was correct. And the difference was the Crutchfield was telling me to use this blue cable, which goes to this remote plug, which is right here, which I'm not going to use. The other instructions had a data cable, that was this, and then an audio cable, which is this. They may be reversed, but both of those then go into the radio, the aftermarket head unit. So I will remove this because I'm not using it. So you can see I have the SU harness here. This is the HRN-HRR-SU2 harness. I have the adapter down here. I think this is the SON1 that goes into my Sony radio. And then I had to make a couple changes according to the instructions to ensure that everything was working properly. I also bought an antenna adapter. I think this came with the Crutchfield. kit, and this plugs into the aftermarket head unit so that I can use the antenna that's already in the car. So some of the things that I do have to install, there is a GPS unit that I have to install here. CarPlay does not work without this setup, so that plugs into the aftermarket head unit. And then I'm installing a new microphone as well. It would be nice to keep the factory, and I think it still needs to be hooked up because of Starlink, but this should give me some better audio when I'm talking on the phone. What I also did was, in this SON1 harness, I tapped into the parking brake. That's what this light green cable is. And then this I'm going to ground on the chassis here. This is so I can use the HDMI feature of my head unit even when the car is not parked. Another thing I found, if the car is not in accessory, it won't work as well. So now this will basically give me full access to the HDMI, which is really cool. I wanted to be able to play videos because I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and now I can play those while I'm driving and have them up on the screen. Next, I plugged in the rear camera that went into the harness that came with the Sony head unit. I'm not going to be using any of these other inputs. This is nice if I was coming from an amplifier, I could plug in all of these, but I won't be using them. And then I also had to splice into this harness for Starlink. So this was a little confusing. This brown wire right here says Starlink on it. And this, I couldn't figure out where it tapped into. And then I took a look. This is a 28-pin harness, and there is a pink wire. So it's in position 24, which if you're looking at position counts, it goes from 1 to 14, which is on the far right. Then you drop down, that's 15, and then you go back. So this is 1 and this is 28. That is how I found this 24, and this ensures that I can still use the Starlink controls up here, even though I'm not using them. I'm not paying for that service. The other thing that I ran was this cable here that runs down and under, and this plugs into my ODB 2 port. This is really nice because the head unit that I bought allows me to actually see check engine codes, and it allows me to reset them, which is really fascinating. It also allows me to tap into some of the other controls. I think it gives me some other things that I have access to as well. The last thing that I had to tap into was these 2 wires here. These go to the climate control. So I had a blue and a red wire, which were in position 1 and 2 that I had to tap into. The other thing that I did was I needed to retain the factory Starlink module back here. So what I did was I dropped this down and then plugged in all the cables that I needed. This will allow me to fit the new head unit in and the storage DIMM at the bottom, so there's no way to see through it. So I originally had mounted this Starlink unit to the bottom of the head unit, but there was a gap between the head unit and this module, so I decided I'm just going to push it down to the bottom and everything else should fit in well. So I just need to mount a couple of these things, and I had the whole radio plugged up and sitting right here with the towel just so I could test to make sure everything works, because I wanted to make sure that I had all my controls in the steering wheel working properly. I had all of my speakers, my factory subwoofer that's in the back, so everything is good. The other thing that I did was this used to be a cigarette port, so I took some pliers and I pulled out the stock port here, and then I purchased an MHDMI-USB-C extension, but I took that and I fed that in, and it fits in really nicely. So I didn't have to do any type of cutting. And then the wire itself, I will zip tie and then push down, and that will go into the back of the radio. And that exposes both the HDMI and the USB-C up front. The other nice thing that I tested out was both of these USB ports. These do still charge my phone, but they don't provide data anymore because I don't have the USB connected up there, which is fine for me. I would rather just have these for extra charging if I needed, and then I can use this as my main input. So all in all, it took a little while to finagle and test out. I'm glad I did get a chance to test out all the functionality before I pushed everything back in. So now the tricky part is just making sure that I get all the wires reconnected and then set in there so that I'm not going to have any issues. And then I need to, like I was saying earlier, mount both this GPS antenna and the microphone. So we have the majority of the head unit back in. So I'm going to connect the screen because I want to make sure everything's working before I close it all back up. Now I need to reconnect the battery. So we'll give the car power, make sure the screen turns on, and then we can test the various functions. So we've got radio. Yep, volume works, mute works. Yep, going to the next song works. Source works. So it looks like we have front and rear speakers. Walmart. Okay, microphone is working properly. Okay, looks like it's reading vehicle properly. Make sure rear camera works. Rear camera works. Gauges. So everything looks like it's in good shape. We're ready to finish with the rest of the install. We can now snap the new faceplate in. I want to make sure that this harness can clear all these wires. Daytime controls plugged in. We should be able to snap in this faceplate. Lines up really well. So before I install the top vents, I'm going to install the screen and then get it at the right height so that I'm not blocking the vents and I'm not blocking these controls either. And then there are screws that go in to mount it to the back of the radio. So in this configuration, it's too high. So I need to drop the screen down, and on the back, I have the ability to change where this mount is. So I'm gonna remove these screws and I'll move this whole unit up. Okay, all of the screws are out. Okay, so the base moves at this point. So this is as low as the screen can go. which looks like a pretty good spot because I still can see all of my controls from here. The other adjustment that's available is I can move the screen closer to the dash, which I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna loosen this. I'm gonna move it from the 1 position over to the 3 position. Okay, another adjustment we have on the screen is the angle of this. So I'm gonna remove this and the screw on the other side, and I'm going to rotate this down so that this is out of the way so that I can push it further into the unit. Now that the screen's mounted, I can connect the vents up top. And then before I snap it back in, just to make sure everything's wired properly, I'm going to plug the power back in. Make sure I have air. Yep, that's all working properly. All buttons work. Perfect. Warning lights work. And my controls up top. Perfect, so I'll finish snapping it in, and then I have to run some of the wires under here. Okay, the car is all back together at this point. So we've got the radio that is up and running. We have all the speakers are working, all the controls are working on the steering wheel. We have our new HDMI and USB-C jack installed that didn't require any drilling. We have our new microphone that's mounted right here, and we have our ODB2 connection that's in there that gives me access to the vehicle information right here. All right, well, thanks for watching. Subscribe. I'll be putting up more videos of different projects, and hopefully this was helpful to somebody who was thinking about changing out their head unit, because I know there's a lot of issues on the Subaru Infotainment Center, but hopefully I'm going to be happy with this. I've always wanted a little bit of a bigger screen. I know it's going to make the audio sound a little bit better, and I have much better responsiveness and things now, and it's cool that it's tied a little bit into some of the car system as well. All right, take care.